He won't tell you this, but there's a moment that melts even the strongest, most guarded man. And it's not when you touch him, kiss him, or even praise him. It's when you lean in close and whisper that nickname, the one that hits something deep inside him, the one no one else knows. Because in that moment, he doesn't just hear a word, he feels chosen, seen, and quietly claimed. And the best part? Most women never realize just how powerful that one word can be until it's too late. When it comes to attraction, especially between an older woman and a man who admires her, there's something that often gets overlooked. Men aren't moved by logic, they're moved by emotion. That's why the power of a nickname hits so much harder than most people realize. It's not just a word, it's a trigger. A trigger that reaches past his surface confidence and taps into something deeper. A nickname isn't just what you call him, it's how you make him feel when you say it. And when it comes from a woman who knows who she is, who doesn't play games because she's lived through all of them, it lands in a man's chest like a soft explosion. That's the secret. It's not the name, it's the emotional experience tied to it. When an older woman, graceful in her wisdom and unshakable in her confidence, whispers something personal in his ear, it's not cute, it's unforgettable. Men may act strong, logical, or even indifferent, but deep down, every man is searching for emotional safety. A nickname doesn't make sense, it makes feeling, and feelings are what drive behavior. So when you casually call him my king, or lean over during a private moment and say heartbreaker, you're doing something powerful. You're bypassing all the logical walls he's built and speaking directly to the part of him that still wants to be chosen, admired, and seen. That's why the right nickname sticks. It stays with him long after the night ends. He may not say it out loud, but the moment you say it once, he replays it. He remembers the tone of your voice, the way your eyes locked with his, and suddenly that simple word becomes a symbol of how you make him feel. And the truth is, men aren't used to it. They might hear their name barked out in the boardroom or their title repeated at work, but when was the last time someone spoke to their spirit? That's what a real nickname does. It separates you from the crowd. It lets him know you see something in him, something that no one else has taken the time to appreciate. Even if he doesn't show it, that nickname becomes part of his identity in your world. It changes the emotional story he tells himself. He stops being just a guy trying to impress an older woman. He becomes your rock, your storm, your wild one. These aren't just playful names. They're emotional anchors that bring him back to you. What's wild is how quietly it works. You don't need to overdo it or say it in public. The real magic happens in the subtle moments. A soft whisper over dinner, a low murmur in the car, a teasing glance in a crowded room. These small gestures rewire how he sees himself in your presence, and it becomes addictive, not just the word, but the emotional rush that comes with it. And once that happens, it's no longer about the nickname, it's about the bond, the intimacy, the feeling of being chosen by a woman who doesn't need to play games to be powerful. When that nickname comes from her lips, it becomes more than a word. It becomes a moment that echoes, and men will chase that feeling far more than they'll ever chase a body. There's something magnetic about a woman who's lived enough life to know who she is. When she walks into a room, it's not her age that stands out, it's her presence. She doesn't need to be loud or flashy. Her confidence is quiet but powerful, and that alone captures attention. But when she speaks, especially to a man, and especially when she drops a playful nickname into the mix, everything changes. Because for him, it's not just the name, it's the way it lands, the energy it carries, the mystery behind it. And when it's whispered from someone older, a woman who clearly knows what she's doing, it becomes intoxicating. Younger women can be charming, sweet, and fun, but there's a different kind of depth in a nickname that comes from someone seasoned. It's not an experiment or an attempt to impress. It's deliberate, it's crafted. It comes from someone who has seen what works, who understands how men think, and who isn't afraid to speak directly to that masculine part of him. That's the secret sauce. She doesn't stumble over her words. She doesn't wonder if he likes it. She just says it, slow and with intention. And that energy, that's what grabs him. Most men, whether they admit it or not, crave a kind of leadership from a woman. Not in the way people assume, not dominance or control, but presence. A woman who knows herself helps a man feel safe enough to drop the act. So when she calls him something unexpected, my wolf, tiger, handsome trouble, it doesn't just sound sexy, it sounds earned. And men feel that. They feel the respect, the recognition, the attention to who they are beneath the surface. When it's wrapped in that elegant, confident tone, it doesn't just stroke his ego. It tells him, you're worth something to me. A nickname from a woman like that doesn't come off as needy or clingy. It comes off as a compliment with edge. It's flirtation, but with a touch of wisdom. It's affection, but without insecurity. That's rare. And that's why it sticks in his mind. He knows she doesn't throw words around casually. So if she's chosen to call him something special, it means something. It carries weight. It makes him stand taller, walk differently, even behave better. Because when a man feels seen by a woman who has options, by a woman who values herself, he starts valuing himself in new ways too. There's also this unspoken fantasy at play. For many men, being desired by an older woman who still finds them worthy is like being chosen by a queen. It's not just hot, it's validating. It's every boyhood dream rolled into one. It's not just about sex or romance, it's about being enough. And when she whispers a nickname in his ear, with a voice that's both calm and electric, it sends a shockwave through his system, because suddenly he's not just a man anymore, he's her man. Her chosen one, her nickname, whatever it is, marks him. It puts him in a different category. It makes him feel chosen in a way no one else has done before. And that's the power of it. A nickname from someone with authority and grace doesn't just flirt, it frames. It tells him who he is in her eyes. And when those eyes have seen enough of the world to know what matters, that nickname doesn't fade. It lingers in his memory. It shows up in the silence. It makes him replay the moment in his head. Because at the end of the day, men don't just want to feel wanted. They want to feel understood. And when that understanding comes with a name only she calls him by, it becomes his favorite sound. Men are wired to feel needed, useful, and powerful. It's not always about dominance or control. It's about purpose. Deep down, a man wants to be someone's hero. He wants to be admired, not just for what he has, but for who he is when he shows up fully for a woman. That's why the right nickname can change everything. When you call him something that touches the part of him that wants to protect, lead, or provide, you're not just being cute, you're speaking to his core identity. And when that nickname comes from an older woman, someone he naturally sees as wise, discerning, and harder to impress, it becomes a kind of badge of honor. There's a difference between a woman saying babe in passing and a woman looking at you with steady eyes and calling you my protector after you did something small like fixing the heater or standing up for her in a conversation. One feels routine, the other feels earned. Men know the difference. They may not say much in the moment, but inside something shifts. He suddenly feels like more than just a guy. He feels like her rock, her go-to, her man. And when he feels like her man, he starts acting like it more consistently. That's the secret influence older women have. They know what to call out in a man and when to say it. They don't waste their words, which is why every nickname hits differently. When you call a man something that stokes his sense of pride, something like champ, warrior, or even boss, you're doing something psychological. You're affirming his place in your life as someone strong, capable, and worthy of trust. Men crave this. Even if they seem independent or emotionally guarded, they still want to know that someone sees value in them beyond their appearance or paycheck. A nickname becomes a way of delivering that message, but in a way that feels fun, intimate, and low pressure. It's like saying, I see you, and I admire what you bring to the table. What makes it so effective coming from an older woman is the power of contrast. She doesn't need to flatter him. She doesn't have to stroke his ego. So when she does, it feels intentional. It feels real. It feels earned. That's what makes the nickname stick. He doesn't hear it as a throwaway word. He hears it as a reward, a quiet acknowledgement that he's doing someone right, that he's pleasing someone he respects. And for a man, there's nothing more affirming than that. That's what keeps him coming back. That's what makes him try harder, stand taller, and keep looking for ways to impress her. It also builds a private language between you. When you call him my king in a playful tone after he opens your door, it becomes an inside joke, a moment that lives between you two. Over time, it becomes part of your bond. He begins to associate that name with how he feels when he's around you. Respected, admired, strong. That's no small thing, especially in a world that often tells men to shut down their emotions. Those little words become permission to feel proud of who they are, and that's something they rarely forget. Because it's not about making him feel powerful in the world, it's about making him feel powerful in your presence. That's where the real connection happens. That's what sets you apart from every other woman he's met. The nickname becomes more than a label. It becomes an emotional trigger that tells him every time you say it that he matters, that he's enough, that he's wanted, not just for what he does, but for who he is to you. There's something almost electric about the way intimacy is built through whispered words. When a woman leans in close, lowers her voice just enough for only him to hear, and lets a nickname slip out with a playful smirk or soft breath, it creates a moment that stands outside of everything else. That moment becomes a secret, shared, private, intimate. And that's where the magic happens, because it's not just about the word you say, it's about how you say it. Men are far more sensitive to tone, timing, and energy than they'll ever admit. And when the delivery is soft, deliberate, and wrapped in feminine energy, it bypasses their thinking mind and goes straight to their instincts. This doesn't even need to be romantic or overly sensual. The key is that it feels personal, like something just for him. A nickname that's whispered, not declared, carries a different weight. It doesn't shout, "I'm yours." It teases it. It flirts with the idea. It lets him fill in the gaps with his imagination. And that's a powerful space to live in. Men thrive off mystery, off subtle signals that suggest there's more to uncover. So when a confident, grounded woman whispers something like trouble, my favorite, or dangerous, it ignites something primal. It's not just playful, it's loaded with meaning, with invitation, with the kind of emotional charge that keeps him thinking about it long after the moment has passed. It also shifts the environment. If you're out in public at a dinner, at a gathering, and you lean over, get close enough that your lips almost touch his ear and say something only he can hear, the entire energy between you changes. Suddenly, the world around you fades just a little, and a small cocoon of connection forms. That's intimacy, not the big declarations or dramatic gestures, but the small, quiet ones that happen when no one else is paying attention. And in that space, you have more influence than you think. A man who's used to being seen in broad strokes, strong, capable, in control, rarely gets spoken to in that intimate register. So when you do it, he feels it deeply. And here's the real secret. It's not just about what the nickname makes him feel. It's about what the whisper tells him about you. It says, you're comfortable with closeness, that you're confident enough to lean in, that you're not afraid to create a moment. And most men are drawn to women who don't need permission to connect, who aren't waiting to be led. When you whisper something to him, you take the lead without overpowering. It's subtle dominance. It's femininity with command, and that energy is irresistible. The best part is the whisper doesn't require a perfect script. It's not about the exact word. It's about timing, about eye contact, about the lean in, about the way your lips curve right before you say it. A soft "Hey hero" in a quiet kitchen, or a whispered "I see you" after he's done something thoughtful. Those moments don't just make him feel loved. They make him feel seen. They make him feel chosen in a way that public affection can't replicate. It becomes something he looks forward to, a moment he wants to earn again. Because when a woman speaks like that, with that level of softness and certainty, she stops being just another connection and becomes a kind of emotional home. A place he can return to over and over again without needing to explain why. Most men walk through life wearing invisible armor, whether it's the pressure to stay composed, to appear strong, or to hold everything together without complaint. They're conditioned to keep certain feelings buried. Even when they're in relationships, it can be hard for them to truly relax and let down their guard. That's why a woman who knows how to gently pierce that armor without threatening his pride becomes unforgettable. And one of the most underrated ways to do that is through a nickname. Not just any nickname, but one that's said when he's most unguarded. It could be in a moment when he's frustrated, tired, or just being his quiet, serious self. That's when the right words can disarm him in the best way possible. When a man feels emotionally safe, everything about him begins to shift. He becomes more open, more generous, more consistent. And the safety doesn't come from hours of conversation. It often comes from the little things. A gentle touch, a knowing smile, a nickname that softens the edges of who he thinks he has to be. Call him Softy when he's doing something thoughtful, even if he's pretending he doesn't care. Whisper "my thinker" when he's zoning out, clearly lost in thought. Say "tough guy" with a teasing tone when he's being stubborn but trying to hide that he cares deeply. These are tiny moments, but they change the emotional temperature instantly, because instead of pushing for him to open up, you're letting him know it's safe to just be. Most people don't realize how hard it is for men to feel truly seen without being judged. Often the world only acknowledges their actions, the job he does, the money he makes, the things he fixes. Rarely is there a moment where someone simply sees the intention behind it all. That's what a well-timed nickname does. It tells him, I see the person behind the performance. It removes the weight of expectations and gives him space to just exist. And when that space is filled with affection, lightness, and warmth, he begins to crave it more and more. Not because he's weak or emotional, but because everyone, including men, wants to feel safe and accepted. When the nickname is spoken in a soft moment, when he's not being flashy or impressive, it becomes a kind of permission, a signal that he doesn't have to perform for you, that you're not just attracted to his strength, but also to his stillness, that you admire not only his courage, but his humanity. And that subtle shift changes everything. He starts to see you not just as someone who compliments him, but someone who gets him. And when a man feels understood on that level, loyalty follows. The beauty of nicknames in these moments is that they're not about control, manipulation, or even seduction. They're about closeness. They create a rhythm between two people, a quiet code that builds trust over time. It's a way of saying, I see you in this moment, and I like you here too. That kind of emotional freedom is rare for men, and when they find it, they protect it, they value it, and they return to it again and again. Not because they're trying to win or impress, but because with you, they don't feel the need to pretend. A nickname becomes more than just a word. It becomes an invitation to drop the weight of the world, even for a little while, and just be. When a man receives a nickname that's uniquely his, something no one else calls him, it becomes more than a playful phrase. It becomes a part of his identity, but only in the world that exists between the two of you. And that's what makes it powerful. Men don't just crave affection, they crave exclusivity. They want to feel that they hold a place in your life that no one else occupies. A private nickname creates that. It builds a bubble around your connection, something unspoken that signals you are mine and this moment belongs only to us. That feeling is addictive. It doesn't matter how strong or self-sufficient he is, when you give him a name that no one else knows, it hits the deepest part of him. Men, even the most emotionally guarded ones, want to feel irreplaceable. They want to believe they bring something to the table that no one else can. So when you gift him a nickname that's tied to something you've noticed about him, his strength, his silence, his laugh, even the way he looks at you, it feels personal. It's not generic. It's not something he's heard before. It's a name tied to a feeling he only experiences with you. That's how emotional bonds are formed, not through grand gestures, but through repeated moments of being seen and remembered. The nickname becomes shorthand for a deeper connection, a signal that says, I notice you in ways others don't. And it doesn't need to be overly romantic. Sometimes the best nicknames are the ones that seem casual, even a little cheeky. Captain, troublemaker, fox, or daydream might not sound groundbreaking on the surface, but when they're used consistently and with intention, they create emotional hooks. Over time, those words become soaked with meaning. They become memories. He hears the name and immediately recalls the way you said it, the way your eyes looked when you did, the feeling it gave him. It's not the word, it's the repetition, the context, the emotion behind it, and that emotional weight builds with every interaction. There's also something incredibly grounding for a man about being recognized by a woman who isn't trying to change him. A nickname, especially when it comes from a place of affection, becomes a form of gentle acceptance. It's like you're saying, this is how I see you, and I like what I see. That reassurance is subtle, but it's powerful, and when it comes from a woman who holds herself with maturity and emotional clarity, it matters even more. It tells him he's already enough, that he doesn't need to do more or prove anything. He just needs to keep showing up as he is. Eventually, the nickname becomes something he identifies with, not in the outside world, but in the world he shares with you. It's a private identity, a version of himself that feels safe, wanted, appreciated. And because it lives in such a personal space, it becomes hard to let go of. Even if the relationship evolves, even if time passes, that name and the woman who gave it to him sticks in his mind. He may not talk about it, but he carries it because it made him feel chosen. It made him feel like he belonged somewhere that wasn't about status or performance or strength, but about being seen and named by someone who genuinely understood him. That kind of emotional imprint doesn't just fade, it lasts. So when we talk about nicknames, we're not just talking about playful words or flirtatious games. We're talking about connection. Real, deep, lasting connection. The kind that speaks to a man's pride, his vulnerability, his desire to be seen, and his hunger to feel special in a world that rarely tells him he is. The truth is, every man wants to feel like he's more than just another option. He wants to feel like he has a place, a role, a presence that matters. And when an older woman, one who carries herself with grace, wisdom, and quiet power, calls him something that only she calls him, it does something no one else can. It creates intimacy without pressure, warmth without weakness, and meaning without explanation. It becomes a secret between two souls, a private language, and in that space, men open up, they soften, they fall, not just because of what she says, but because of who she is when she says it. And that's why the right nickname, whispered from the right woman, will echo in his mind long after the moment is gone. It won't just make him smile, it'll make him stay.